Okay, I'm going to get started by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is our group learning program where I help students to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. Each Sunday, I give a talk in this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. And this week, we're in chapter 22, which is titled Mental Health, a Modern Day Delusion. This is where you're going to learn about what is the true cause of things like ADHD, ADD, PTSD, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, bulimia, anorexia, all these different things that nowadays people are actually thinking that are biological and a defect in the brain. You can actually see how it's just an untrained mind. I'm going to help you to be able to see that in a way that you can independently verify, because through training your mind with the teachings of the Buddha, you'll be able to eliminate any of those types of symptoms if you're experiencing any of those kinds of things. So welcome to all of you, whether you're joining for the first time or you're joining regularly. The way that we start our class is we start with meditation to be able to help you guys to train your mind, because the Buddha figured out how to get to this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will eliminate all your anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. And meditation is an important component of this, but you would need more than just meditation. And that's why after our meditation, I will usually provide a talk to be able to help you guys understand certain aspects of the path to enlightenment. If you'd like to join for the meditation, the way that I start this is with some chanting to be able to ease into the meditation. And I see many of you guys have the chanting sheets. If you would like one of these, they're on the cabinet over there by the bulletin board. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is a learning tool. It was a learning device because everything he taught was oral, so they used chanting as a way to help them remember his teachings. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, a ritual, a ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. There's nothing like that in the teachings of the Buddha. If you've been associated with, or if you've seen rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer connected to the teachings of the Buddha, these are gross misunderstandings of his teachings because he never taught any of those kinds of things. So when we're doing this chant, it's to help ease the mind into meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself, because it helps to build awareness of the mind and awareness of breath as you're easing into the meditation so that you can get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you read the English translation of these chants, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants. They were probably created by his students either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me. This would be ego or arrogance to do that. And an individual who's gotten to enlightenment, they don't have ego or arrogance. They don't look at themselves as being above other people and looking down on people. So I'm sure that these chants wouldn't have been created by the Buddha. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings to the peaceful and joyful mental state that is enlightenment, and this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, they were just helping you out of the kindness of their heart, you probably have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. So that's why I think that these chants actually came from his students either during his life or after his death. So if you'd like to chant them on the way in, you'll surely see more benefit in your meditation. And then after the chanting, you're going to see me come in with some guidance. That's where I'm going to be essentially teaching you or instructing you how to meditate while we're actually meditating together. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet. And we're all meditating at the same time. Those of us here at the temple and anyone joining online will just all be meditating. And during that period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds here and there, because you can't be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. If you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you will cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. You live in an impermanent world. It's not possible for it to be permanently quiet. So you're going to hear potentially a car go by, maybe a dog barking, bird chirping. Maybe there might be someone that coughs or sneezes here. This is all normal. Those sounds are going to arise. They're going to change and they're going to fade away. But if you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, thinking that the world around you should be permanent, you'll cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. This is one of the reasons why you can eliminate your discontent feelings, because it's the mind itself that is causing these feelings. Oftentimes people think it's the outside world that is causing you to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed or any of these other feelings. But what you're going to be able to learn today is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and that's why you can actually eliminate them. So during that period of quietness, if you hear sounds, which I already hear some, there's someone doing some work back here, you're going to be able to just remain peaceful and joyful and content. And you're not going to be able to be affected by that if you don't have a craving in your own mind for permanent silence. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and that's where I'll start today's class. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times as part of your journey to enlightenment. And we have various courses and retreats that will help you to be able to learn these different positions. It's like having a tool belt to employ the different things that you need in different times in your journey to enlightenment, because your body can't be in the same position permanently. So you're going to need these different positions as part of your journey to enlightenment. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. So I'm going to provide you some guidance on this to be able to help you find something that's maybe even more comfortable than the way you're already sitting. There's no kind of rules or anything like that. There's not just one way to sit. So what I'm going to share with you are just suggestions or recommendations, and you can use these if you like. But even if you find something on your own that doesn't actually relate to what I'm teaching, it's okay. You can sit however you like. There's not just one way to sit. So you could sit on the floor. We have chairs. If you're at home, you might be on a bench or a sofa or in a wheelchair. You can sit however you like. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of help soften your seat a bit. If you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just decide to do that lightly. That way it'll allow the circulation to flow and you won't experience any pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. And if this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. And the same thing's true for anyone who's sitting in a chair, on a bench, or a sofa, or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people might sit with their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed, so this is an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. This will help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Because what meditation is it's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. So you would like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation, and by having the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll help you to be able to do that. Whereas if you were slouched like this, there'd be a tendency for the mind to be dull or lethargic. But if you're real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back, which will help keep the mind attentive and alert, but it'll also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do some chanting to ease into meditation, and you guys are welcome to join in, and then I'll come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Wat Tung Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang namami. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Iti piso emakava arahang sama sambuddho vicacaranang sammuno sakatoro kawitu Anutero purisa Dhamma sati satatawa manusrang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands, arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind focused on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโอตังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเตมิ สวากขาโตมหาเกวตาตัมโมดามังนามาสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. As I was mentioning, today's our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I get together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. We have other courses and retreats, opportunities to learn and participate in events as well. But this Sunday class is an opportunity for students to really develop a foundation in the path to enlightenment. We actually teach this here at the temple at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. and we live stream it all over the world. So no matter where you are in the world, you can actually join this particular class. Welcome to the people joining us today. In fact, if you can't even make the live stream, it's actually recorded so you can watch it at your own leisure. What we do is each Sunday I go chapter by chapter in this book, helping students to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. You can get this at no cost. You can download it for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can get it on Amazon. Each chapter is helping you to be able to develop your understanding of the path to enlightenment. And the way that the teachings of the Buddha work is they're not based in belief. It's an opportunity for you to learn, grow, and understand the teachings that it takes for you to be able to get to enlightenment. You're training your mind. You're uprooting certain pollutions out of your mind. But there's no belief in the teachings of the Buddha. So you're not believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning, examining, investigating teachings now. You're then reflecting on those teachings to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life, making decisions through those teachings and training your mind. And this is what's going to lead to the point where eventually your mind is gradually experiencing more and more qualities of this enlightened mental state to the point where it's ultimately enlightened. There's progress all the way through the path that you can see. Some people, in short, it's just a few days can actually see improvement to the condition of their mind. So it's not like you're going to be doing all this work for multiple years and then there's this light switch that goes off and instantly in your enlightenment enlightened. This isn't the way enlightenment works. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is people think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and then instantly got to enlightenment. And this actually isn't true. It's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that leads to that. So as you're gradually learning the teachings of the Buddha, you're awakening to the wisdom that is about the natural laws of existence. There's certain natural laws in the world that are helping you to be able to see how things truly are in the world. In the unenlightened state, there's a lack of wisdom in the mind, and the mind goes around thinking about things in a certain way that is oftentimes unwise. And your mind can be conditioned to think or believe in a certain way, but the teachings of the Buddha are to help you purify all of that and get rid of all that conditioning where you can see true reality. And the more that you uproot all these pollutions out of the mind, you'll see that the mind's not that it's experiencing more and more peace and joy, that the mind is calm and serene. You'll see that there's focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory in the mind. Because when you uproot these pollutions out of the mind, you'll see that the mind performs more optimally. You'll notice that you get rid of all your anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others can be eliminated from the mind by uprooting the causes and conditions that are producing them. It's actually what's going on in your own mind that's actually producing these feelings. Oftentimes people think it's the outside world that's causing these feelings within one's own mind, but it's actually what's going on in your own mind. And this is what the Buddha did, is he figured out what is causing these feelings, and then he figured out the tools and techniques of how to uproot it out of the mind so that as you apply those teachings, you can see that this works for you as well. By the time you experience the enlightenment, you'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming, that you don't have bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind anymore. So since you're not putting that out, you'll see that that's not coming back to you, that you'll see that your relationships are at ease. You'll get to the point where you're not even in a bad mood any longer. And again, this comes through training of the mind. This is something that you experience in this life, and gradually the mind is awakening to this enlightened mental state. One way to say it is that you're attaining enlightenment. Another way to say it is that your mind is already enlightened, and you have these pollutions that are in the mind that are hindering you from being able to experience the qualities of that enlightened mind. So if we have like the sun, for example, and there was clouds in front of the sun, well, if you peel away those clouds, the rays of the sun will start shining through more and more and more. The sun was always there. It's just that the clouds were blocking it. It's the same thing with the enlightened mind. That you might say that your mind is already enlightened, but you have certain pollutions that are in the mind that when you remove those pollutions out of the mind, then you'll see more and more of the qualities of enlightenment shining through. But the only difference here is that with the analogy of the clouds, they're actually going to come back and block the sun at some point. But the pollutions of the mind in the enlightened mental state, once you remove those and get those out of the mind, they'll never actually come back again. By the time you get to the enlightened mental state, it's a permanent mental state that you'll be experiencing for the rest of this life. It's a complete transformation in the way that their mind functions, the way it operates, the way that you interact in the world around you. And what starts that off is a teaching called the Four Noble Truths. This is the core central teaching. This is the very beginning of the teachings of the Buddha. And I've shared this multiple times in this program. As you guys heard me share, I'm in chapter 22 now in this program. And I know many of you guys, this might be your first time here to be able to maybe learn a little bit about what the teachings of the Buddha are. This particular topic that I'm teaching today is called Mental Health, a Modern Day Delusion. This is chapter 22 of our book. I'm helping students here to be able to understand some of the things that you've been taught aren't necessarily the truth about what's really going on in the world in relationship to the mind and mental health. That oftentimes we might be taught that we're mentally ill, or that our brain is defective, and that we need to have chemistry of our brain balanced in order to be able to eliminate things like sadness or anger or a lack of concentration and these types of things. This is a gross misunderstanding of what's going on within the human mind. And I'm going to help you to be able to see that through what I'm going to share with you. but it's important that you don't believe what I share. Don't believe what other people share, but don't believe what I share either. You're going to be able to independently verify what I'm sharing with you today. So if you're experiencing symptoms of things like ADHD, ADD, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, anorexia, bulimia, any of these types of things that you hear in the world, if you're experiencing those symptoms, the symptoms are true. They're real. There's real mental anguish that people are experiencing in their day-to-day life, but the underlying cause of what's producing that isn't understood in the world. And as long as you don't understand what the underlying cause is, you're not going to be able to actually fix it. So oftentimes people are in there with medications trying to tweak brain chemistry in order to be able to experience improvement in the health of their mind. But this isn't actually going to produce an ultimate solution that is going to be permanent for an individual. So I'm going to walk you guys through this to be able to help you understand it. There's information in the book that you can read it there, but I'm going to also share some of that information with you today. And as we go, you guys are welcome to ask questions. I'm going to be pausing a few times as we go because it's very rare that somebody's just going to understand what it is that's being shared. You're going to need to ask questions to be able to clarify some of your misunderstandings. And as you do, you're welcome to ask any and all questions that you like, whether you're here at the temple or you're online. If you're here at the temple and you like to ask questions, we have a white bowl there in the middle of the room with microphones. Just get one of the microphones, take it back to your seat. You can press the gray button. You're going to see the lights come on, and you can hold this up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then when you get one of these microphones, if you'd like to keep it with you, you're more than welcome, because you might actually have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone with them. And when you're not using it, if you could turn off the microphone, that would be helpful so that we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then for those of you guys that are online, if you guys would like to ask questions, you can put this into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like that way. So one of the things that I've taught, and I've taught this multiple times throughout this program, is the Four Noble Truths. This is the very beginning teaching of the Buddha. And what I'm going to do here is just kind of give a little refresher, because I know many of you guys weren't here. But if you haven't learned this with me yet, you're going to need to take your time and walk through this in a more methodical way so that you can understand it real clearly. In order to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand the three universal truths. These are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths are four simple statements that are going to help you to be able to understand the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And in order to be able to understand mental health and what people are being taught in terms of mental health, you need to be able to understand the Four Noble Truths, because this is going to help you to be able to independently verify and see the truth for yourself of what's really causing things like sadness and anger and stress and anxiety and difficulty sleeping and a lack of concentration and issues with images and how you think that maybe your body looks and things of this nature. So you're going to need to learn the Four Noble Truths in detail and be able to independently verify it. But what I'm going to do here is just kind of give you guys a little bit of a rough overview and kind of like a refresher for some of you guys. But for those of you guys that haven't studied this with me before, if you guys would like to dig into any aspect of this in more detail, I'm going to pause and you guys can ask questions, because the Four Noble Truths, like I mentioned, is helping you understand the problem in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, in the path forward. You can actually have a real breakthrough to being able to finally understand what's causing your mind to experience things like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. Because in the unenlightened state, with the lack of wisdom, the mind will firmly believe that it's other people that are causing you to be frustrated or annoyed or agitated. You might think it's your boss that is annoying you, or you might think it's your brothers and sisters that are frustrating you, or maybe your mom and dad are making you angry. This isn't actually true. And as long as you think this way, you will continue to experience this over and over and over again, where you'll just be angry and frustrated for the rest of your life, stressed and having anxiety and fears and guilt and shame and loneliness and boredom and all these other feelings. But you can get to a point where you understand what's causing these feelings, and then you can actually eliminate them. That's the beauty of the teachings of the Buddha, is that he's explaining to you what's causing these feelings, but then he's giving you the tools and the techniques of how to actually eliminate it from the mind. So the three universal truths are helping you to understand three things about the world around you: impermanence, discontentedness, and this universal truth of non-self. What the Buddha is teaching you with the universal truth of impermanence is that things are constantly changing in the world around you. You need to be able to independently verify that things arise, they change, and they fade away. Because this is a building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths, that things are constantly changing. The weather changes, your bank account changes, this physical body changes, your relationships change, people come and go in and out of your life. Things are constantly changing in your life. Your living location, your job and occupation, everything's constantly changing around you. So normally I take my time and I walk students through this very closely so that you can take your time to independently verify it. Because that's what you need to be able to do, is you need to be able to look around the world and see for yourself that things are constantly changing. This is going to help you to develop wisdom. Because remember, nothing's based in belief. Then you need to be able to understand what's called discontentedness. This is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. It experiences conditioned feelings that are pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. That the mind experiences things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. Then it experiences painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, and other things like this. These are very painful for an individual to experience. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category. But a good example of this might be shyness. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or if you were sitting on public transportation and there was somebody who came and sat really close to you and your body was touching their body, you might say that it's not painful, it's not pleasant. The mind is maybe uncomfortable or dissatisfied. The mind is experiencing neither painful nor pleasant feelings. So this is what the unenlightened mind experiences, is these three feelings. And these are what's called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, you're then going to experience a feeling. So for example, if it's sunny outside, you might be happy or excited. That's the condition that has to be met in order for you to experience happiness. But the problem with that is that the sun is not permanent. So when the sun goes away and it's raining, now you might be frustrated or agitated or annoyed because you based your feeling of happiness on an impermanent condition. Because that condition is not permanent, that means your happiness is not permanent. That's why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because the unenlightened mind is basing its inner feelings on some impermanent condition. So if you get really happy and excited when your bank account balance is up here, that means when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated or irritated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling, because you based your happiness on an impermanent condition. So your mind's going to move from that pleasant feeling to a painful one. It's only a matter of time. So these here is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing, where the mind is shaken up. It's unsteady. It's uncalm. Sometimes people talk about this as suffering. If you've studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, they might refer to it as suffering. I don't refer to it that way because it doesn't accurately describe what the Buddha was teaching here. Because if you talk about suffering, you're only describing the painful feelings, but you're not describing the pleasant feelings or the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. So you need to be able to bring your mind to the full understanding of what's actually happening within the unenlightened mind, that those pleasant feelings, the mind is shaken up there too. If you've ever been so excited that you like tripped and fell, or you dropped something and broke it, you can know that your mind was discontent in that situation, right? Or in that situation where someone comes and sits next to you on public transportation and your body's touching their body, you might say you're not suffering in that situation, but your mind is discontent, right? You're displeased, you're unsatisfied in that situation. That's the mind being shaken up. So this particular universal truth is explaining how the mind is discontent or discontented or experiencing discontentedness. And it's these three feelings of conditioned feelings that is the reason why the mind is there experiencing that discontentedness. That's what the mind's experiencing. Then there's something called the universal truth of non-self. What this is where the mind this is the solution, but the problem that this solves is that the mind is clinging to the body and it's clinging to the mind, thinking that this is who you are. The mind can cling to a self-image or a self-identity. And now when you're experiencing agreeable contact, you'll feel good about that. But when you're experiencing disagreeable contact, your mind will feel one of these feelings of painful feelings are neither painful nor pleasant. Essentially, what the mind's doing because of what's called personal existence view is it wants to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you can only feel comfortable when you're being perceived by others in that way. So, for example, if you've ever been to a social event and you spilt something on your clothing and you were embarrassed in that situation, this is your personal existence view, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only feel comfortable if you're being perceived that way. So when you have clean clothes, you're happy because you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. But when you have spaghetti sauce all over your clothing or chocolate ice cream, now you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived, and now the mind experiences embarrassment, for example. Or if you've ever stood in front of your closet and you thought about who you're going to see today and how you want to look when you go see those people, and you've maybe rifled through your clothing to try to find exactly the right clothing to put on before you go outside, and you could only feel comfortable going outside when you had those specific clothes on, that's your personal existence view. That's the mind clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you could only feel comfortable when that was the case. Or if you've ever looked in the mirror and you saw a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple or a gray hair, or you started losing your hair and you were shaken up by this, this is the mind's personal existence view. Clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and only being comfortable when you're being perceived that way. Essentially, what the mind's doing is it's craving and clinging to this body, wanting it to look a certain way permanently, and not being comfortable when you experience impermanence, because this body is impermanent. The same thing can happen with your self-identity, that there can be things like, I am something, based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. You might think that I am American, or I am Chinese, or I am Lithuanian, or I am German, or I am Canadian, or I am Mexican. Any of this I am around your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your culture, your job or occupation, any number of these things, your mind can identify with that as who you are. And now let's just say you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody's saying something really wonderful about the place where you come from. They might say, oh, Chinese people are loving and kind and warm and gentle, or all Americans are loving and kind and warm and gentle. And you're like, wow, I am American, I am Chinese. And you feel really great about that. But then it's only a matter of time before 2 tables over, somebody says something degrading or disparaging about the place that you come from. And if you hold that identity in your mind, you'll be frustrated, you'll be agitated, because you're like, they're talking about me, right? So the mind is holding on to this identity. You might even have been in a relationship before where you thought, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I am a wife. And now, as long as you're in a relationship, you had a certain amount of comfort. But when you guys broke up, you didn't identify with I am single. And your mind might have felt like the way to solve this is to hurry up and get right back into another relationship and kind of reassume that identity of I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I'm a husband, I'm a wife. So the mind's identity that it's clinging to, thinking that this is who you are, is part of the problem that you're experiencing, and the reason why the mind experiences discontentedness in some of these situations. So this personal existence view is plaguing the mind from being able to experience peace and joy permanently. So the solution to that is called the universal truth of non-self, where the Buddha helped you to understand this body is not you, and this mind is not you. It's not who you are as a person. This is going to allow the mind to then strip away this idea that this particular body or this mind is who you are. So I'm going to just pause here for a second. Do you guys have any questions on any of these 3 universal truths that I just shared? No questions here? Okay. So next, an individual needs to understand craving, desire, attachment. This is something that the mind does in the unenlightened state, where it has longing, yearning. It chases after the objects of its affection, wanting things to be a certain way. The mind is having an unquenchable thirst, thinking that there's something external that's going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. The mind has certain wants and expectations. It's almost like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. The mind thinks that something external is going to provide lasting happiness. So the mind will chase after it. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you were like, oh, brand new pair of shoes, I really want those, I really want those. That's the mind longing, yearning. It's not the shoes that is the craving, desire, attachment. It's the way that the mind longs and yearns for the shoes. That's what is the craving, desire, attachment. Or if you've ever thought, I know what will make my life better. Let me get a boyfriend or girlfriend. That'll fix everything. Let me get one of those. And now you might have chased after one of those for a while. And then if you got it, you were happy. But then when you weren't getting what you wanted, you were angry or frustrated. Then the mind's like, I know what I need. More money. That'll fix everything. Let me go get some more money. And now the mind chases after that for a while. This is what the mind's doing when it has craving, desire, attachment. The mind's longing, yearning, thinking something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So once you understand these things, then you can start to understand the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths are those four statements that you can understand and independently verify what is actually the real root of the problem that the mind's experiencing. Because you need to understand the cause of the problem in order to be able to fix it. If you don't understand what's causing the problem, you wouldn't be able to fix it. So in four simple statements that are independently verifiable, you can see the problem, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward, and how to fix your mind where you're no longer experiencing any anger and frustration and all these other discontent feelings. So the first noble truth is the problem. Everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. Those conditioned feelings, those are the problem, that the mind is basing its inner feelings on some condition, something external. The mind is basing its feelings on that. That is the problem that the unenlightened mind experiences. The second noble truth is explaining the cause of this problem, that discontentedness is caused by craving, desire, attachment, because the mind wants things to be permanent when in reality you live in an impermanent world. That the mind is longing, yearning, it's craving, it's wanting things to be permanent, but yet you live in an impermanent world. So here's some examples of this, so you can see it for yourself and independently verify it. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with. You were probably so happy, so excited when you guys first got together, right? They were inviting you to the movies, to dinner. You were going to the park. You were having some nice conversations. You might have even been having sex and intimate contact. Wow, all this pleasure, right? But over time, this relationship deteriorated and you guys broke up. And now when you guys broke up, you might have been angry or frustrated, or you might have been lonely or bored, or you might have been missing this person. This wasn't your love or your care that was causing this. This was the mind craving permanence, wanting this person to be in your life permanently. As long as they were in your life and you were getting what you wanted, the mind had a certain amount of happiness there. But when the mind wasn't getting what it wanted, it experienced the painful feelings. You can see this too if you see like maybe a grandma or grandpa has died, or brothers or sisters, or your mom or dad has passed away. As long as they're alive, the mind's getting what it wants. But when they die, the mind's not getting what it wants. It's craving permanence. As long as grandma and grandpa are alive, your mind's getting what it wants. There's a certain amount of happiness. But then when they end up dying, the mind's not getting what it wants. Its craving is not being fulfilled. So that's where the painful feelings come in. But grandma and grandpa had to die. Because they were born, they had to die. Right? This is the only reason why we die, is because we're born. The only thing that's happened here is change. That's it. So one of the ways to say this is that the mind craves permanence, but another way to say it is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. When things are changing in your life, that's the time that you struggle the most. That's where the stress and the anxiety and the anger and the sadness and the frustration and all these other feelings are coming into the mind. You can see this not only in relationships, but let's just say you bought a brand new car and you're really excited about this brand new car, and you drove it to the store and you parked it and you went inside and you came out and there's a scratch on your car. If you get frustrated in that situation, it's not the scratch that's causing it, and it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing the frustration is the mind is craving permanence, that the mind wants this car to look permanently beautiful, when in reality, this car can't be permanently beautiful. It's not possible because this car is impermanent. The paint's going to fade, the tires are going to need to be changed, the upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. This is all impermanence. But if your mind craves permanence, when you see all this change with your car, your mind will be frustrated or annoyed or angry or some other discontent feeling. So I could give you example after example after example so you can see this for yourself, but you need to see it based on your life and the things that you've experienced. So what I'd like to invite you to do is take a recent situation where you've been angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. It could have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes. What was it that your mind was longing, yearning for? What was the craving that you had? What did you want or expect? And if you would have got what you want, you would have been happy or excited about that. But because you didn't get what you wanted or expected, you were angry or frustrated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. You need to be able to see this. And if you can't see it, let me know, because I will help you. Right? Maybe you went to the airport so excited to go to Thailand. You just couldn't wait to get to Thailand. Oh my gosh, mango and sticky rice, massages, elephants. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get there. Right? And then you show up to the airport and your flight's delayed or it's canceled. Right? I don't know, did any of you guys experience that on your way here? No? Well, if you travel enough, you're surely going to experience it, right? Because of impermanence, right? That's the only thing that's happening here, is that every single plane cannot take off on time. But that's what the mind wants. That's what it expects. Every single plane needs to take off on time, especially the ones you're on, right? Now, if you show up and your flight takes off on time, okay, you're happy about that, right? But if your mind doesn't get what it wants, what it expects, now the mind's angry or frustrated. And the thing is that not every plane can take off on time. There's going to be a maintenance issue, crew issue, weather issue. Eventually, if you travel enough, there's going to be a delay in your flight. It's only a matter of time, right? Because of the universal truth of impermanence. We live in an impermanent world. So we could look at example after example after example, but you need to be able to see it for yourself. Because what the mind's going to do when it doesn't understand the second noble truth is it's going to blame the outside world for the feelings that you experience. The mind firmly believes that it's other people that are causing these feelings for you. And what you'll tend to do is function unskillfully. You will tend to push people away out of your life. You might have done this where you've pushed away friends or family out of your life, thinking that that was going to solve the problem. But you can see it didn't solve the problem because you still get angry. You still get frustrated or annoyed. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear that person into doing things your way. Or the third thing you might do is put your expectations on people and try to pressure them or force them to do things your way. And people might be doing this to you too, right? Because unenlightened mind functions this way. People might be pushing you away. They might be bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they might be putting their expectations on you and trying to control you to do things their way. Because they think if I can just get things my way, then everything will be perfect. Because the mind's trying to get its cravings fulfilled. So you need to be able to see this for yourself so you can have this breakthrough to being able to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because as long as you blame other people for the feelings that you're experiencing, you'll never actually solve it. You'll just continue to be angry and frustrated your whole life. You might even go around the world trying to change other people and convincing them to do things your way. But the problem with this is there's 8 billion people in the world. You'd have to have a massive training program to train everybody to do things your way, right? And there's new beings being born all the time. So you can't train 8 billion people to do things your way, but you can train one mind. That is possible, right? And that's going to be challenging enough. You can train your own mind. But it starts with understanding what's causing these feelings. Then once you understand what's causing it, which is craving, desire, attachment, then you can move on to the third noble truth and understand that the way you eliminate your discontentedness is by eliminating your craving, desire, attachment. The way that the mind longs and yearns and craves permanence, you can eliminate that. You can learn how to come to the middle and gradually pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest. And you can independently verify the third noble truth too, that when you eliminate your craving, desire, attachments, that it does allow your mind to be peaceful and joyful. Because think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you were with. When you guys first broke up, you were angry, you were sad, you were lonely and bored, or other feelings like that. You were missing this person. But at some point, your mind let go. You were no longer craving for them to be in your life. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. Let him go. And your mind was like, whoa, that feels so much more peaceful and so much more joyful. Or, you know what? If she wants to move to another part of the world, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back, right? So if you eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, this craving for permanence and holding on to things so tightly, you can actually experience complete peace and complete joy. And the way that you do that is through the fourth noble truth. The fourth noble truth is the complete perfect plan that's helping you to be able to understand exactly how to train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state where you eliminate this craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. This eightfold path has 8 individual factors that you learn as part of the journey to enlightenment. And on Tuesday morning, I'm going to be teaching this entire path because we have a course coming up this week, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., where you guys can join and learn all the foundational teachings of the path to enlightenment. And it's available at no cost. You can come and be here. You can just show up. You can be here for the entire course or a portion of the course. It's really up to you. You can come and go as you please. But on Tuesday morning, I'm going to be teaching this entire path. And it starts with right view. Right view is to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's craving, desire, attachment, the mind's longing, yearning, that it's craving permanence when everything around you is constantly changing, that it's impermanent. Wrong view would be to blame other people. If you keep blaming other people for what you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis, you'll continue to experience those things over and over and over again. You'll never be able to fix it because it's actually your own decisions that are leading to any particular result that you experience. So you need to first establish right view. And I usually take my time really helping students to understand this. It usually takes me about 45 minutes to share what I just shared with you in about 15 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to just stop here for a second and see if you guys have any questions on the Four Noble Truths and how it's your own mind that causes these feelings, because that's going to help you to then understand things like ADHD, ADD, anorexia, bulimia, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, any of these number of things that you're seeing in the world. This is going to help you to be able to understand that. Do you guys have any questions on this? Yes, ma'am.
Hi. So as you mentioned, there is no permanent situation or no permanent myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious that where are the different thoughts always come from to my mind? So what's the source of the different thought come from? What is the source? So if there is a higher dimension of myself or somewhere, give me this different kind of thoughts.
Yeah, the Buddha did not teach that there's some kind of higher dimension or some self that's giving you these thoughts. Each individual's mind, based on our own experience, we're going to have various thoughts and ideas. And if our mind is polluted with the pollutions that the Buddha discovered, you're going to tend to have unwholesome thoughts. And as you have those unwholesome thoughts, if you act upon those things, now you're going to experience unwholesome results in your day-to-day life. But what the Buddha is teaching you how to do is how to purify your mind so you can get wholesome qualities of mind, and now your thoughts will be wholesome. And then if you act upon those, now when you implement decisions through wholesomeness, now you'll experience wholesome results in your day-to-day life. But why do you have one thought versus another? This is not understood in the world. It's just that an individual's own direct experience that you have various thoughts. But if you have a purified mind, you will have wholesome thoughts. And if you have a mind that has pollutions in it, you will have unwholesome thoughts. And then based on your actions and the decisions that you make through those pollutions or lack thereof, then you'll experience results either wholesome or unwholesome. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't see any questions here on the Four Noble Truths. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is help you guys to understand mental health, because this is something that a lot of people misunderstand in the world. You might have been taught various things. Remember, don't believe other people, but don't believe me either. You need to be able to independently verify for yourself what it is that you're learning so you can see the truth. So first, let's make sure we understand that the brain is not the mind. These are two separate things. The brain is the physical organ that is inside the skull. But then there's the mind, which is non-physical and non-tangible. This is what the Buddha is teaching you to do, is train the mind. But there is this brain as well, this physical organ. There's a connection between these two things, but they're two completely separate things. When you're training the mind, it will affect the brain. And when you're tweaking brain chemistry, it will affect the mind. But these two things aren't the same thing. So you can't really touch the mind. It's not physical in nature. Some people, a lot of people in the West, they will point to the head when they talk about the mind. Here in Thailand, they actually touch the heart. They think about it as being in the heart. There's other cultures that think about the mind as being outside the body. But the true nature of this is that the mind is not tangible. It's not physical. So you can't actually point to it. There's no specific location that it exists. Unlike the brain. The brain is physical and you can point to exactly where the brain is. But these two things are completely separate. So people experience symptoms like sadness and stress and anxiety and all these other symptoms. And oftentimes when people are experiencing these things, they think there's something wrong with their brain. So they might actually seek help to tweak brain chemistry. But those feelings of sadness and things like that, it's originating in the mind. So if you're tweaking brain chemistry, you're not actually affecting the mind and changing what's going on in the mind. There's no amount of chemistry that you can change in the brain that's going to eliminate the mind's craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, these pollutions that are in the mind, this non-physical mind. There's no amount of tweaking of brain chemistry that's going to change what's going on in terms of the pollutions of the mind and the way that the mind's forming its inner feelings based on some external condition. So if somebody gets happy when it's sunny outside and they get sad when it's raining, there's no amount of tweaking of brain chemistry that's going to change that. The mind needs to be trained to no longer form its inner feelings based on something like the sun. Because in the unenlightened state, you experience conditioned feelings. But what you're looking to do for the enlightened mental state is get to the point where you're having unconditioned mental qualities, where the mind can be permanently happy and permanently joyful. But you can't get to that as long as the mind's polluted, and one might think that they need to tweak brain chemistry in order to be able to change the mind. So these chemicals are not a permanent solution because it doesn't actually solve the underlying problem, which is craving, desire, attachment, the mind's expectations, the longing, the yearning. There's no amount of tweaking brain chemistry that's going to eliminate that out of the mind because these are two separate things. The mind needs to be trained to let go. That's what needs to happen. That meditation that we did this morning, a breathing mindfulness meditation, where we are focused on the breath and the mind moves off the breath and you cut that off and let it go and come back to the breath. That's what that meditation's doing, is it's training your mind to let go, let go, let go. Because the unenlightened mind doesn't know how to do that. It's going to hold on. And there's no amount of medicine that's going to change that. You need to actually train it through meditation, but also through other techniques that the Buddha taught as well. That's why there's a whole path. That meditation is just one particular part of the path to enlightenment. So there's other things besides meditation that you would need. So let me give you some examples of what is referred to as mental illness. Okay. So someone maybe as a child could have experienced something that is oftentimes referred to as trauma. Let's just say somebody was physically abused or sexually abused or something like this. This is always unfortunate when these things happen, but it can happen, and it happens somewhat frequently in the world that we're living in today. And now that a child has experienced this, now as they age as an adult, as they start having memories of those things in the present moment, they can be thinking about what happened in the past, and now they're forming feelings today based on what's happened in the past. And sometimes people call this trauma, and they think that it can never be solved, and they think that it's a permanent aspect of the brain, that now they've experienced this situation in the past, and now they will forever be experiencing these painful feelings as a result of what happened in the past. So someone might refer to this as mental illness, that someone is now depressed or sad, or maybe they're having suicidal thoughts or stress or anxiety, or maybe they're having other complications through their sexual activity. Maybe when they have sex, it's not even pleasurable for them because they're remembering about the things in the past that has occurred. So now in the present moment, the mind is basing its inner feelings based on something that's happened in the past. So this could be labeled by some people as mental illness. Or someone might be experiencing symptoms of what is referred to as bipolar disorder, where sometimes people get really, really excited and really happy. They might go outside and buy a bunch of things. They might gamble. They might have sex. They might use drugs and alcohol and things like this. But then at some point they kind of crash and they're really sad. That's why they call it bipolar, because the mind goes up into this really excited state, but then it can actually crash and have this sadness or despair that's in the mind. And people think that this is chemical based, that it's because of the chemistry in the mind. They sometimes refer to the excited state as mania, and then there's this sad state. This is your pleasant feelings and painful feelings. And someone might refer to this as a mental illness. So the symptoms that people are experiencing is 100% real. It's 100% true. These people are oftentimes experiencing deep anguish in the mind, that as a child, they might have experienced something traumatic as having been sexually abused or physically abused. And now in the present moment, those symptoms that they are experiencing where they're having painful feelings is 100% real. And the same thing with someone who's labeled as bipolar. What they're experiencing is 100% real. That mental anguish is real. But the underlying cause isn't brain chemistry. It's the mind's craving, desire, attachment. That in the present moment, that adult who had sexual abuse or physical abuse in the past, their mind is clinging. It's holding on to this experience. It hasn't let go. It won't let go because the mind's holding on, and it's basing its inner feelings today based on something that happened in the past. Where if the mind was trained to let go, the individual would remember that they had those experiences, but they wouldn't be forming their feelings today based on those experiences. The same thing with someone who's labeled as bipolar. The reason why they're experiencing that excitement is because they have a lot of cravings and they're chasing it and chasing it and chasing it. They might go out and have a lot of sex. They might go out and gamble. They might go shopping, and they're getting all these things fulfilled, and they're getting really excited because all their cravings are getting fulfilled. But at some point, their cravings aren't getting fulfilled anymore, and now their mind crashes and goes into this sadness. And it doesn't matter how much you tweak the brain chemistry, that the mind is still doing this. The mind is still chasing and forming its inner feelings based on what it experiences, whether it's getting what it wants or whether it's not getting what it wants. So the condition is believed to be a chemical imbalance in the brain. This is what people are believing. And people might go to a medical professional. They might tell you that you have a defective brain and you need to change your brain chemistry. But the true source of the problem in this situation is still unknown. An individual is still experiencing what we refer to as wrong view. That if someone still thinks that the problem is brain chemistry, then they're not looking at the mind, this non-physical, non-tangible thing, and they're not able to train their mind and purify the mind of the true cause of what's causing their mind to experience these different feelings. So if an individual has wrong view and they don't understand what the true cause of the problem is, then they'll keep experiencing the mental anguish over and over and over again. But through studying the teachings of the Buddha, you can understand the cause of these discontentedness and these harmful intentions, speech, and actions that one is experiencing is from an untrained mind. That an individual will oftentimes, when they have wrong view, they will blame their choices about their moral conduct on their brain chemistry. Someone might say, oh, I'm bipolar, that's why I'm so angry. Or, oh, I have this mental illness or that mental illness, and that's why I'm experiencing this particular thing, and I can't fix this because my brain is defective. And if someone continues to do that and think that way, they're going to relegate themselves to a life full of complications and difficulties and even medications in a lot of times. So as long as this wrong view is in the mind, there's going to be a lack of wisdom, there's going to be a lack of moral conduct, there's going to be a lack of mental discipline. And now without being able to control the mind can kind of unravel on itself. Someone can have things like psychosis and other things like this, if you're familiar with what that is. So if the problem is truly a defective brain, what we would see is we would observe that all populations of people across the world have the same defects and the same problems across all populations. So we would see that, okay, there's this population, say in the US, that is maybe struggling with a lot of mental illness. Well, we would see the same exact problem. If it was a brain defect, we would see the same exact problem in a place like Thailand or other places like this. But that's not what we see. We don't see a massive amount of mental health issues here in Thailand because people are actually training their mind. Where some countries might say that they have a mental health crisis, here in Thailand, that's not the case. They don't have a mental health crisis here because people are growing up from birth training their mind. So their mind is well trained to a certain degree. But if it was a defective brain, we would see across all populations the same exact problem. If the brain is defective, we need to be able to understand that that truly couldn't have happened in just a few decades, because it's only been in the last several decades that there's been a proliferation of what we refer to as mental health disorders or diseases and things like this, where people experience sadness and frustration and anxiety and all these things during the lifetime of the Buddha too. But they understood, and they didn't even have chemicals available to them. They understood that they had the capability of solving that. So that's what the Buddha figured out. But now, all these years later, we're resorting to things like chemicals and thinking that somehow we can tweak brain chemistry in order to change the mind, when this isn't actually true. So if the brain is truly defective, that couldn't have occurred in just a few decades, that now all of a sudden the human population has defective brains, that we're walking around with defective brains. If the modern mental health practices are actually helping, then we would see the number of cases where people are experiencing this mental illness, we would see it decline. Right? So if we've identified a problem, that the brain is defective and the chemistry in the brain is defective, and now we've introduced a solution, which is modifying brain chemistry through medication, now when we implement that, we should see the mental health cases declining because we've actually solved the problem. We've figured out that we have a problem with the human brains, and now we've implemented a solution that the problem is now declining. But that's not what we actually see. Ever since we've been implementing mental health solutions with chemicals, we're seeing an increase in mental health cases, that they just continue to grow and grow and grow. If the modern mental health practices are actually helping to solve the problem, then where we see these mental health practices practiced the most, then these people would be the most mentally stable and the most mentally fit people in the world. Because again, if we found a problem that the brain is defective and we're implementing a solution to solve that, then we would see that those people that are using that solution the most would be the most mentally stable, most mentally fit people in the world. So you can look at places like the USA or the UK or Australia and places like this. These are the places that tend to use these things the most. And there's other places too, but these are places that tend to use them the most. And you can ask yourself, if you're familiar with these populations of people, are they the most mentally fit, most mentally healthy people that you've encountered? Is that where you see a lot of stability of mind in those populations of people? If the answer is yes, then you can see that these mental health practices are working. But if the answer is no, that you don't see a lot of mentally fit, mentally stable people in those populations, then you can say that these mental health practices that have been implemented over the last several decades aren't actually helping in the way that people might think. There is a need for medication. There is a need for mental health practices. But when we think that that's the end-all be-all solution, then we're not looking at the mind. We're only tweaking brain chemistry. Because when someone's in something called psychosis, if you're familiar with psychosis, there's no amount of meditation and Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path that'll actually fix that. You need medication to actually fix something called psychosis. There's no way to actually train that away. But once somebody gets out of psychosis by using medication, that's the time to actually start training the mind. But if somebody doesn't understand that's what they need to do, they'll just relegate themselves to medication for the rest of their life. So Western cultures don't typically understand things like the three universal truths or the Four Noble Truths or the Eightfold Path or things of this nature. So people will typically be looking to chemicals in order to be able to change what they're experiencing in the mind. And you can't actually introduce chemicals in order to be able to fully transform the mind. You need to actually train the mind through the teachings of the Buddha. Some additional things is an individual can learn and practice the teachings of the Buddha and create a stable mind. For people who have actually experienced things like psychosis, or they've been labeled as bipolar, or they've been labeled as having ADHD or ADD or any of these other things, if an individual then starts training their mind, they can actually see the improvement to the stability of their mind. And oftentimes what people do as they start training their mind after 6 months, a year, 2 years or so, they actually start to reduce and then ultimately eliminate their medication. And they can see that their mind is very stable, that it was these teachings and training their mind that actually led to the stability of their mind, not the medication itself. They might have needed that medication for a period of time just to kind of get them out of psychosis, for example. But once they were, then they were able to then start training their mind, and they were then able to eliminate their medication 100%. But whether somebody actually chooses to do this or not, it's a choice for them to make. I'm not here to tell anybody that they should immediately eliminate their medication. That's a decision for each person to make in consultation with their doctor and so forth. But an individual who's training their mind closely, they will be able to see the stability of their mind gradually improving. And they'll get to the point on their own, and perhaps with the consultation of their doctor, to choose to maybe reduce and or eliminate their medication. And then they can see the truth for themselves that it wasn't brain chemistry that was causing the difficulties. Because once they remove the chemicals and they've trained their mind is fully stable and steady, that it's not the tweaking of brain chemistry that led to the ultimate solution. So an individual can eliminate being relegated to medications and the expense of doing so through training of the mind. You'll know it's the right time to actually reduce or eliminate your medication as you see gradual improvement to the condition of the mind. So here, what I have in this particular chapter is I have a number of different things that are labeled as mental illness, and I'm showing people the connection to the teachings of the Buddha. So let me show you how this works. So for example, some people think ADHD or ADD, that this is a mental illness, that the brain chemistry is off, that there's a defective brain, and now, we need to tweak the brain chemistry. What ADHD is or ADD is where the mind can't focus. It doesn't have concentration. And people think that this is a mental illness. But the only thing that's happening here is that the mind is craving mental stimulation. It's longing, yearning for stimulation, and it lacks concentration. And this has been happening most frequently because of the way that our lives have changed as human beings. Prior to the last, say, 40 or 50 years, we didn't have the devices that we have now. Nowadays, we have phones, we have iPads and computers. We're constantly bombarded with messaging, and we have these little short, things that we see, and our mind is jumping from thing to 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 thing, where maybe we're watching a 30-second video and then we're off to the next thing, 30-second video and off to the next thing. And the mind is jumping around like this. So if you grow up as a child having this kind of device where your mind's constantly jumping around like this, Well, now when you go to school and you're in second grade or third grade and you need to sit there for 30 minutes or an hour listening to a teacher teach, your mind can't do it because it wasn't trained to be able to focus and concentrate, because the mind was jumping around from birth essentially up until 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old. And now when you're sitting in class, you can't focus and concentrate on the teacher's lesson. And now the teacher might say, oh, I think you should have your child checked out for ADHD or ADD. All they're saying is that your child can't concentrate. Your child can't focus. They're having difficulties concentrating. And that's just because their mind hasn't been trained to concentrate. Their mind has actually been trained to jump around every 30 seconds based on videos and based on other things that we've had in our life. Where when I was growing up, we didn't have those kinds of things, right? We didn't have this jumping around of the mind because we didn't have those types of devices. So people tended to have more concentration and focus, where now people's minds aren't doing that any longer. People are jumping around from thing to thing to thing. So someone might be led to believe that they have a problem with their brain, when in reality, it's just a lack of training of the mind. That a child can actually train their mind to have focus and concentration so that now when they're in class, they can focus on what it is that the teacher is sharing. Or some people might be taught that they have anorexia or bulimia or some kind of eating disorder, right? People might think that their body doesn't look nice, and now they might starve themselves or cause themselves to vomit in order to be able to get skinny and really thin, thinking that that is an image of beauty. All this is the mind's personal existence view, where the mind is craving a certain image of beauty, that the mind is, in its mind, it thinks that this is beautiful and my body doesn't look like that and I want that. And now the mind's going to try to starve itself, thinking that that's how you're going to get to this beauty. Where in reality, if we understand impermanence, that not everybody looks like this. In fact, that image that we're seeing in the magazine or in the TV, it's been photoshopped. It's been changed anyway. That's not even what the person truly looks like in real life. But now this person's mind has been imprinted to think this is beautiful and I need to get my body to look like that or else I am not beautiful, right? So now the mind is taken on this craving, this longing, this yearning, this wanting to look a certain way and thinking that everybody's body should look this way when that's not possible because of impermanence. Or say something like anxiety. Someone might be in a profession and now maybe 2 weeks from now, they have a big presentation that they're going to give to their boss or maybe their boss's boss. And now they're having anxiety or fear about this. Well, this is the mind having a craving, desire, attachment in anticipation of what's happening 2 weeks from now, that the mind wants to look a certain way. It's having a craving to impress the boss. The mind is longing, yearning. It's expecting and wanting things to be a certain way, wanting to be perceived by the boss a certain way. And now the mind can have anxiety in the situation. It's not chemistry that's causing it. It's the mind longing, yearning. It's having this craving for permanence. I want to be perceived in a certain way, and the mind can only be happy if it's being perceived that way by others. So that's where the anxiety is coming from. It's a craving. It's a desire. We could go through all of these, but they're in the book for you guys. I'm not going to go through all of them. There's actually a big chart like this that you can see all the different things that are here. Even things like PTSD, schizophrenia, substance abuse, suicidal thoughts. This is sometimes what people have, that in the present moment, they're experiencing such painful feelings that they want to die. And they think that this is what's going to solve it, is that if they kill this being, that this is going to solve their painful feelings. If you talk with people who have suicidal thoughts, they don't truly want to die. They're not really interested in dying. They just want to stop their painful thoughts. They don't like those painful feelings, but they don't know how to eliminate them. They don't know the escape for it. So sometimes what they do is they tweak the brain chemistry, trying to get rid of these suicidal thoughts. When if you actually train the mind and you eliminate the underlying cause, the craving, desire, attachment, then the individual can get to a real solution where the mind's peaceful and joyful. They actually enjoy their life instead of having all these painful feelings about what's going on in their life. They can actually get to a point where they enjoy their life. So most people who are interested in killing themselves, they don't really want to die. They just want the painful feelings to stop, and they don't know how to stop them because they don't have the wisdom of how to train their mind. Because all of us growing up, we were taught how to clean this body, and we know how to do that because our parents taught us to do that. And by the age of 10, 12, 14 years old, we started cleaning this body regularly because we liked that feeling of having a fresh body. But we might not have learned how to clean the mind. And this is what is producing all of these things, is that there's this other part to this being. There is a physical body, but there's a mind as well. And if you're only cleaning the physical body and you're not cleaning the mind, you're not addressing this full being. So if you walked around for a few weeks or a few months or a few years without cleaning the body, you'd feel pretty uncomfortable. So if you've been walking around for several weeks or months or years without cleaning the mind, sure, you're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to have stress and anxiety in your mind because the mind is not cleaned up, that it has these pollutions in the mind. So that's what the Buddhist teachings are offering for you, is to help you learn the wisdom of how to clean your mind. And now you're in a place where the people understand how to do that. Here in Thailand, they understand how to clean the mind. And when you clean the mind, you'll see that these symptoms don't exist. So let me just take one more, and then I'm going to stop because this is everything I have to share, and I'll see what questions you guys have. Something like OCD. This is obsessive compulsive disorder. With an individual like this, they might have this craving for perfection, craving for everything to be a certain way. As someone with OCD, they will try to have their house look spotless. They will even go to the carpet and they will kind of comb the hairs on the carpet because they want them to all be a certain way. Now, this is really challenging. This is very difficult to live your life this way because every little tiny piece of dust, every little crumb, every little thing in your house, you're obsessively trying to keep your house super, 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 super clean. Any little speck of dust, the person can't function. They have difficulties. All that's happening here is the mind is having craving, desire, attachment, wanting things to be a certain way permanently. Whereas if you eliminate that and you understand, like, it's normal for there to be dust, it's normal for there to be some crumbs, it's normal for things to be like that, that your house can't look a certain way permanently. It's just not possible. This individual can train their mind and no longer have that mental anguish of going around their house and trying to get things to look a certain way permanently. But without the wisdom of these teachings, an individual won't do that. They'll think that there's a problem with their brain chemistry, trying to tweak brain chemistry, but it never actually gives them a full solution. So again, you guys can look at each one of these, and there's more than just these here. I just, in this particular book, put an example of a bunch of these mental health things that people are referring to as illnesses so that you guys could see, the connection to the teachings of the Buddha. So do you guys have any questions here that you'd like to talk about any of these types of things, mental health, or how the teachings of the Buddha help improve mental health and so forth and so on? I think Marta has a question. Yeah.
I'm trying to understand the Buddha's chain of thought, because I'm not sure how much of the chemistry was there in his lifetime, right? Like those medicines and so on. Because I'm also happy because first when I started listening to you, it was more like we should not use it at all. But right now also I understand that maybe in certain cases we should be using it. My personal perspective is don't use it as much as you can, not use it, right? But like sometimes I believe that there's like, we are so lost as human beings that sometimes maybe you need to use this just to kind of like lever you so you can start working with additional like work through the, Eightfold Path, or like sometimes you're just like unable, or maybe you could be able, but maybe you don't have that wisdom yet just to go for it. Just, like your reflection on it. Is it
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm teaching is that, I've actually experienced a lot of these things. That's how I know that it's not brain chemistry, because I, for a long time, used to take medications and I went through all the mental health stuff and I was trying to find solutions there. I was told that my brain was defective. And if you weren't sad before you went to go see the doctor, you'll surely be sad when a doctor tells you your brain's defective, right? But then when you start training your mind and you see the stability and the peace and the joy, and you're able to get rid of all these medications, and it's been 7, 8 years since I've needed to take any of that. It was back in 2018 that I was able to eliminate all of that stuff. I wasn't even able to sleep without taking a handful of medications at one time. That's how polluted my mind was. But once I started training my mind, now I sleep like a baby. I sleep really well. I can fall asleep at the drop of a hat, and so much peace and joy. But when I was in the situation where I was having what's called psychosis is you're just out of your mind. It's like you're having hallucinations and delusions. They had me in a straitjacket at one time and 5-point restraints and injecting medications into the body. There's no amount of meditation and Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path that's going to change that. You need the chemicals. And that's the reason why we have them, right? Is that we figured out how to now help the people that are in that situation. But once you get out of that situation and your mind is more stable because you've tweaked the brain chemistry and there has been an effect to the mind. It hasn't completely solved what's going on in the mind, but it has at least created enough stability that you can now learn and you can now start training your mind and you can start practicing getting rid of these pollutions. That's where you'll get to a permanent solution. But these medications aren't going to create the permanent solution. They just kind of numb the mind. And they can lift it up out of psychosis. So it's great that we have this discipline. It's great that we have the ability to do that in society, because if you need it, it's there for you. But if there was people training their mind from birth, the way they do here in Thailand, you won't really need that. So here in Thailand, they have Western psychiatric medicine available to them, but very few people need it. If you go to those types of places, you're going to see a lot of Westerners that are in those facilities in those places. Most Thai people are learning some amount of this training as they're growing up as a child. And this is why we see the stability here in Thailand. This is why you don't see mass shootings at schools. You don't see, a lot of the difficulties and challenges that you see in Western cultures. You don't see that here because people's minds are trained as they're growing up and they learn how to do that because they understand that this being is more than just a physical body. There's a mind here as well, and you need to address both of these. Okay, I don't see any questions. Oh no, we have a question here online. Sorry. Looks like Melody is asking a question on Zoom. She says, may I ask if you have met anyone in life who has mental health challenges and successfully trained their mind through meditation? If you do, if so, do you mind sharing the story? Schizophrenia specifically. Yeah, so you probably asked that before I just shared with you that I was diagnosed with a lot of these things and was able to train my mind away from that. So the people were even talking about borderline schizophrenia one time. And all this is, what schizophrenia is where people hear voices that other people don't hear, right? And what is happening here, and it's true reality that you can independently verify, is that there's multiple realms of existence. There's human beings, which we have physical form. There's animals, which have physical form as well. But there's beings in the hell realm. There's afflicted spirits, which are ghosts. And there's even heavenly beings too. And oftentimes people think of these beings as being in far distant lands somewhere, like the hell beings are deep down in the core of the earth, or the heavenly beings are way up in the sky somewhere. But in reality, we're all in the same time and space. And there's some people who can actually hear in these conversations from these beings from the formless realms, like hell, afflicted spirits, and heavenly realm. People don't understand that that's what's going on. They think they're going crazy and they're using medication to try to suppress that out of their mind. But if you understand that that's what's going on, just like if you're in a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody could be talking really loud and you can ignore that conversation, you can do the same thing with these other beings. Like when a hell being or an afflicted spirit is you're hearing their voice and you can hear what's going on, you can train your mind to ignore that. But if you think you're going crazy and you're going around trying to get everybody else, do you hear that? Do you hear that voice? Do you hear that voice? And other people are like, no, I don't hear it. You would think that you're going crazy. But that's the reason why the Buddha taught the cycle of rebirth and the 5 realms of existence. And these are things that you can independently verify, because as you heard me share, none of his teachings are based in belief. Because when you start lifting this pollution out of your mind, not only can some people hear these beings, but some people can actually see them too. That you can actually see a ghost, or you can see a heavenly being, or you can see a hell being. And if you didn't understand that this is the way the world truly is, you would actually think you're going crazy. This schizophrenia, Melanie, this can be resolved through training of the mind, uprooting the pollution, training the individual how to ignore these voices that they're hearing. You can actually train your mind to ignore that and no longer allow this to come into the mind. But without discipline of the mind, an individual wouldn't be able to do that. So, I've had these situations occur. I've had many countless students that have studied with me over the years that when they first started out, I didn't even necessarily know that they were on medications. And 6 months, a year into it, they're like, hey, David, I'd just like to let you know that I am starting to eliminate medication. I was like, oh, really? I didn't even know you were on medication. And they were like, yeah, I've been talking to my doctor. I'm talking to my therapist. They've never seen my mind so stable as it is right now. And they're actually asking me, what am I doing to create such stability in my mind? And I shared with them that I'm learning and practicing the teachings of the Buddha. And the doctors and nurses were very impressed by that. And they actually helped them to reduce their medication. In some of the cases, they're actually eliminating it 100%. So I'm not the only one. There's many people that are experiencing the same thing, but it's a case-by-case basis that each individual needs to decide for themselves, that they're interested in learning the path and training their mind that way. And then once they do, they need to decide for themselves when is the right time if they decide to reduce or eliminate their medication, because that's a case-by-case basis. And I would never give anyone advice when to do that. It's up to each individual to choose to do it on their own. But they'll be able to see that their mind is more stable, it's more steady, that they're sleeping better, they have more concentration, their relationships are improving, they don't see the bitterness and the harshness in their mind anymore, because they're starting to experience the real results and benefits of having trained their mind. So there's countless cases of this with people that are studying with me and people that have learned the teachings of the Buddha. But then there's also cases where people don't understand these teachings and they're not practicing the teachings, or they're just learning just a little bit and they don't have the guidance that they need and they're running into problems. But if you're learning the real true teachings of the Buddha and training your mind with these teachings, you'll be able to see the results, that it's improving the condition of your mind in your life. I think you have a question.
Is it working? So I think the Buddha learning, we're trying to do the self-caring, but then as an individual, we were in the place around by different people, different scenarios. For example, we know the person, they probably experiencing the depression, or they're having the OCD or whatever, those kind of things. What is your thought, or what is your, I don't say suggestion, what is your thought to say as an individual, how we're going to ourselves to help? It's not to,
how can you help them? Is that your question?
what is our say those different things? I'm not sure.
What is our responsibility? Is that
Yeah,
what you said?
probably.
Oh,
like
okay.
that.
So you don't have any responsibility to help another person. That's not something you're required to do, right? There's only one thing that we're required to do in the world. That's die. That's it. That's the only thing. We can't stop that. It's going to happen, right? But everything else in our life is optional. That we get to decide what it is that we choose to do in the world. Sometimes people burden themselves with responsibilities. And, obviously there's things that we choose to do. Like, for example, I have a 13-year-old son and I choose to help him to get medical care and help him to get food and help him to get clothes. I don't see this as my responsibility. I'm not required to do it. I could do something different and I would be just fine. But this is what I choose to do because I brought this being into the world and I need to be able to fulfill this ability to be able to help him to stand up on his own 2 feet and live a wonderful life for himself. But I haven't adopted it in my mind as I am responsible for this or I'm required to do this. It's something I choose to do. So it's the same thing with a friend or a family member. If they're having difficulties with these mental illnesses or they've been labeled with these mental illnesses, you're not responsible to do anything to help them to fix it. But with your loving kindness and your compassion, as well as your generosity, you might choose to do so. But if you do, just understand that it's not a responsibility that you do it. And one of the things that you can do to help people is you can send them a link for this video. You could send them a link to the Four Noble Truths. You could send them a link to the book. But you would like to do this kind of sporadically, whereas if you bombard people with things, it'll come off as you're forcing them or trying to put expectations on them, right? So like, for example, my sister, sometimes I see she's having difficulties and struggles with certain things. And I'll say, you know, sis, I was like, that thing that you're struggling with, the Buddha has some great teachings that would really help you in that situation. And most of the time she doesn't say anything, right? We're just off to the next thing. Whereas if she was like, oh, really? What is that teaching? Then I would share it with her. But if she doesn't say anything, then I'm not going to share anything with her because her mind's not open to it. So I'm not going to just go in there and try to force something on her, or try to convince her to understand things the way that I understand it. But I invite her to be able to understand by saying things like this. So like if you see a person struggling in your life with OCD or something like that, and they're even talking to you about it and they're explaining how difficult it is, you could say, you know, there's a solution for that. There's something that can fix that. And they're like, oh, yeah, what is it? You know, they might even say, is there some new medication that you know about? No, it's not even based in medication. It's about training your mind. Are you interested in this? And they're either going to say yes or no. And if they say no, okay, move off to the next topic. But if they say, yes, I'm interested, and say, oh, okay, here's a link, or here's a book, or here's a person you can contact. And you can do that out of the kindness of your heart. This is your loving kindness and your compassion. What loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. And what compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. And you would like to practice these qualities with everybody. And then your generosity is your giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation, without any expectation of anything in return, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources. So you can practice loving kindness and compassion and generosity with this person, but it's important that you don't have an expectation that they will do what it is that you're recommending, because if they don't do what you recommend, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So in order to maintain your peace and joy, you offer it to them. And they might step forward and go forward with learning those things, but they might not. And you need to be comfortable either way, no matter what they decide. And you're just making it available for them.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. So I'm just going to end class by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest in the teachings of the Buddha. If you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you to do that. This evening at 6:30 in the main hall, we have meditation, whereas if you're coming for the Sunday night walking market, or you would like to just come to the temple for meditation, I'm going to be doing meditation with students, and then I'm just going to open up to whatever questions students have over in the main hall. So we do that each Sunday at 6:30 p.m. And then at 9 p.m. tonight, I'm going to be teaching the same topic here, because like right now, the people in Europe are sleeping, for example. So I teach at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. So it gives everybody in the world time to be able to attend the live class. And then this week on Monday through Friday, I'm teaching a Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. You guys are welcome to join any part of that or the entire course if you'd like. On Friday, I'm going to be leading a tour outside the city where I'm going to go visit 2 temples. There's a forest temple temple called Wat Tung, and then there's a temple on top of the mountain called Wat Tung. And I lead a tour where I take students around and teach them the artwork, the architecture, and the symbolism of the teachings of the Buddha. It's kind of like a classroom without walls where you can go through the temple and walk through the temple with me, and I'm going to teach you the teachings of the Buddha based on the artwork, the architecture, and the symbolism. And this makes it really nice because then as you visit temples without me, you'll actually understand what you're seeing. Where right now you might just be visiting a temple and like, oh, that's pretty, let me take a picture of that. Where now it'll actually have meaning for you. You actually understand why these things are the way that they are. So you could come just for the tour, or you could come for the whole course, or any part of the things that I'm doing this week. You guys are always welcome to attend here or online. If there's anything that you need to be able to get plugged into these teachings, like books or videos or anything like that, you're welcome to come talk to me and I'll be able to help you. So thank you again for coming. Whatever you decide to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.